1. I deliver pizza, and I've been having a really busy night, non-stop back and forth without any time to even pause and take a leak. I'd been so busy that I wasn't really thinking about bathroom breaks, but we're also going through a bit of a heat wave in our area, so I've been drinking copious amounts of water. All of a sudden, as I was driving to this particular delivery, the urge to go hit me. Things went from like 0 to 60 in an instant. Thankfully, I was close to the customer, so could get this one over with quickly, or so I thought. I pulled up to the house, and it was an area I delivered in before, so I could immediately see that something wasn't right. All the lights were off in the house, not even the glow of a television or anything. It was extra apparent because the streetlight closest to the door happened to be out of order. And on top of it all, the block was dead quiet. This is a big university area, and obviously there aren't many student renters in July. But there had to be at least one person, because someone ordered this pizza. Maybe they just like sitting in the dark, or they were out in the backyard, whatever. I just didn't want to get out of my car and knock on a quiet house in the middle of the night, around 9:30 p.m., without first checking that I had the correct address and the customer was inside. It was scorching that night, even after sundown. My car's AC is a joke, and the piping hot pizzas don't help things much, so I have to try and open the car door as infrequently as possible to keep any cool air in. I called the number the customer provided, and the voice on the other end said, kind of brusquely and out of breath, "Yeah." I just tried to keep it clear and concise. "Hey, it's your pizza out front, but there doesn't appear to be anybody home." "Yeah, I'm not home." I had to pee so badly by that point, and I was much less patient than I'd otherwise be with the customer right out of the gate. "Well then, we're going to have to terminate the order because I've arrived in the stated delivery window, and you were supposed to pay in cash, so I don't know what to tell you. Plan ahead next time." I instantly regretted letting my bladder do the talking for me, as the voice on the other end came through more clearly as a young, bubbly, and very distraught girl, who couldn't have been any older than 20 or 25. "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I was running down the street and I could barely hear you. I just switched you out of my AirPods. Is that better? Sorry, I completely lost track of time at work, but I knew you were coming. That's why I'm literally running home right now. Please don't leave. I'm starving, and I don't have a car. Seriously, please don't leave. 5 minutes tops, okay?" I know what it's like to be hungry and running late, and have no car but not live near any restaurants. Plus, when I heard her voice, I began to remember more specifically having delivered to this place a couple times before, and she'd always been perfectly nice. Now I felt bad for snapping at her. I tried to walk it back while simultaneously looking out my window for potential spots to pee. No, my bad, I'm letting the heat get to me, and it's not your fault." "No need to rush. See you when you get here." I hung up, and while surveying the street, was starting to think I was really out of luck. All the other houses had people in them and were close together, so there were no clumps of trees or out-of-the-way patches of land or anything. Of course, I just tossed an empty water bottle at the last delivery because I'm an idiot. Finally, I decided it was escalating to the point of an emergency, and the safest bet was to use a bush in front of the woman's house. She wasn't home. The streetlight was out, so no one would see me. The people who were home were inside. My car was parked across the street, and we're a small shop who don't wear uniforms, so if someone did spot me, they'd have no way to connect me to my employer. Animals be outside all the time. Humans are animals. This is fine. I scurried over to the tallest bush in her front yard. She didn't really have much of a yard, or just a walkway lined with bushes and flowers that ran adjacent to her front door. The biggest cluster of bushes, the only one where I could be sure there would be no visible splatter on the side of the house, was about 4 feet from her front door. I looked both ways, unzipped, and let fly. After the initial millisecond of relief, I noticed the sound was way off, more like pissing on something solid than something leafy. I started panicking, thinking I'd aimed wrong, but once I start, I can't stop midstream, so I kept squinting into the darkness to see if maybe I was hitting a key rock or something, and could just move a few inches over. Instead, all of a sudden, I heard a way more concerning noise, a deep voice exclaiming, "What the fuck?" And before I could turn around, assuming I'd been caught by a neighbor, a man came leaping out of the bushes. He blew by me, brushing my golden shower off him as he did. He spit pretty emphatically on the ground, so I think I might have beamed him right in the face. I didn't see where he went after a few paces, but though this next part is kind of a blur, I do think I remember hearing a car screech out from a bit further away after a minute. I'd gotten some night vision by that point, so I was able to make out his height, build, and outfit, but only the most general details of each. I was in such shock that I didn't even put my dick away. I just stood there trying to figure out what had happened. The reality was so terrifying that my mind refused to accept it, and impulsively searched for a reasonable explanation that could make everything okay. I thought, could these bushes lead to some backyard area and just look like they were against the house? Could they have been obscuring an open window? My inner voice was desperately screaming, "Bruh, that man was wearing a hoodie in 90-degree weather. That was a bad man. You're in a bad situation." But the very idea that I was within inches of a guy who would be hiding in bushes at all, let alone in front of a young woman's house at night, just wasn't something I was ready to grapple with yet. I was coping by not coping. My fight-or-flight response totally failed me at that point, because my dumbass did the absolute last thing I should have done, and approached the bushes to try and validate this. There must have been a good reason for a man in a hoodie to be behind these bushes in the middle of the night, theory. So I walked over to the side, turned on my phone flashlight, and tried to peer around the line of shrubbery. Pro tip, as scary as things might look in the dark, seeing them with a single beam of your flashlight can absolutely make it even worse. That's when I saw the bag. There was a tattered drawstring bag sitting behind the bushes, slightly splashed with pee. But I was in such a moronic daze from shock that I groped around for it, thinking, see, this is it, this will explain why he was back here. It explained it. Once I maneuvered it over and pulled it out, I saw a sharp knife, a roll of duct tape, and a bottle of pills. The delusions officially broke at that point, and all the adrenaline, endorphins, and self-preservation instincts that had been suppressed kicked in 10 times over. I became whatever the opposite of dazed is, more laser-focused than I have ever been in my life, with one singular goal: get back to my car. I dropped the bag, booked it across the street, got in my car, and slammed the pedal to the floor before the door was even all the way closed. I went as far as I could, as fast as I could, until I hit a red signal. Then I pulled off to the side and realized I shouldn't be driving any more than necessary in the condition I was in. I pulled into the parking lot of a 24-hour drugstore and took a breath. I was finally calm and coherent enough to zip up and formulate a plan of action. My first lucid thought was, who do I call first, the police or the girl whose house that was? I thought about it for what couldn't have really been more than 10 seconds, but felt like an hour, and decided, okay, I am in my locked car with the engine running. If trouble starts, I can drive away. I know something's up, she might not. She needs to know not to keep walking in that direction. But as I was dialing her number, it occurred to me, what if there was no girl? I thought I remembered delivering to that house before, but what if I was wrong? What if the girl on the phone was just a decoy to get me there to rob me, or worse? Every pizza guy on the planet has seen the Evil Genius documentary by now, so I thought, she called me all out of breath, she wasn't home. The whole thing was off, can't risk it, I'll start with the cops. I called 911. The operator was very helpful in keeping me calm, because I was a complete wreck at this point. He kept assuring me that someone would be there soon. I kept telling them they had to get there before the girl did, but I was trying to express 3 thoughts all at once, and really damaging my own credibility. It came out more as, you've got to save the girl because he wasn't after me, and I was just delivering a pizza, unless they were after me, in which case there might not be a girl, but I talked to one on the phone, so then you should find that girl, because they used her to lure me there, and if she's real, then what about the guy who was also real? And that there could be more guys if it was actually a girl, and you know what? Even if there isn't a girl, there might actually be more guys. I only checked one part of the bushes, so I don't really know, but we'll all know which guy is in the one I saw, and I pissed over him, you know? I mean, I didn't mean to. This was back when I thought the girl was real, but not home. But she might be real, so you really need to find her if she is, because the guy was real. Finally, they basically just asked me to stop talking and stay on the line. But that was when I saw an incoming call from the customer. I couldn't answer it without disrupting my 911 call, so I just ignored it. But she then sent me this text like, "Hey, I'm here, don't see you." I told 911 she was there, and they said officers were only minutes away. But who knows how long that meant. Especially after I'd given such a scattered account of the events in my panic. I just felt overwhelmed with guilt because my rational mind said the odds of her being a decoy girl for some large scam targeting pizza guys were low, and the odds of her being the intended victim of a predator were high. So I put my 911 call on mute, where I can hear them but they can't hear me, and turned back, heart absolutely pounding out of my chest, compulsively muttering "fuck, fuck, 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 fuck," the entire way. Then I took 911 off mute and told them I had returned to look for the girl. They weren't happy about that, but I saw her meandering past the parked cars in the street, looking to see if one was mine, and I waved her down, flashing my brights. She bounced on over to the window of my car, happy-go-lucky. I figured that was a good sign that she wasn't in on whatever this was. But I was just so scared to be back in the general area, and to not know what had just happened or what was going to happen. I kept whispering, "Get in, get in." She was like, "Get it? Huh? Oh, you want me to get the pizza from the back?" I didn't want to make the same mistake with her that I had made with 911, so instead of trying to tell the whole story, I stuck to the basic bare facts. There was a man in your bushes. I'm on the phone with the police. I don't know where he is right now. Please get in the car so we can lock the doors. I was barely able to get those sentences out, and I was shaking like I had 10 cups of black coffee. I held up my phone with 911 on the call screen to verify it for her. I thought that was why she got in the car with no further explanation, but it turns out that wasn't entirely it. "You still there? Is she with you? Are you safe? Is anyone else there?" 911 kept checking in, not knowing who the third party I was talking to was. I reassured them and we drove, more cautiously this time, to a location 911 instructed us to wait at to speak with police after they cleared the area. I didn't actually have to do much after that. The police came pretty soon after, a police car met us. I gave a statement telling them everything I observed, and she went to go speak to more officers in more detail than they needed me for. It turns out the reason she got into a strange pizza guy's car without probing any deeper into my story is because she knew who the man was right away from my description. She had an abusive ex-boyfriend who was apparently psychotic enough that he immediately came to mind from hearing, "There's a guy in your bushes." He later called us to thank me and insist on leaving a huge tip. I wasn't there when the call came in, though the kid who answered didn't know to refuse to accept the money. But the manager already promised the next time we see her, we can load her up with enough one-free pie cars to last a lifetime. Easily the scariest thing that has ever happened to me, on the job or off. I don't get the chance to tell the story much because I try to avoid sharing it with anyone who could possibly know the girl or of the event. But I'm still not the same since, even though I know he didn't even have anything to do with me directly, this truly shook me to my core. So, man in the bushes, let's not meet. 2. I'm female, almost 38 years old, and would like to tell you about an experience that I had with my dog at the time. It's been about 11 years, it was autumn and night, and I decided to take a little walk around our housing estate with my dog Sunny. Sunny is a black and big Labrador mix. She is really good and cuddly, but she hates other female dogs. She also has a strong protective instinct, and always snarls when she doesn't know or doesn't like someone or something. There were no streetlights inside the settlement. The only lighting was always at the house entrances. There was a small park with small playgrounds between the rows of houses, but as already mentioned, everything was in complete darkness. That's why Sunny was not to be seen, only to be heard now and then when she was chasing a rabbit into the bushes. Then it goes without saying that she wasn't on a leash. I only need this when other female dogs are nearby. Sunny listens to my word and always comes when I call her. So while I strolled comfortably through the dark settlement and froze my ass, Sunny ran happily through the area and the bushes. I always only guessed where she was because I could not see her, only heard from time to time. At some point I noticed a small shadow that was whizzing around me. When I looked more closely, I could see Sunny. She ran in large circles around me and the place where I was, and I thought she was chasing something. But the circles she drew grew smaller and smaller. She didn't make any noise, and I went on comfortably, because I thought she was having her 5 minutes. That's how it is said where I live when someone is a little bit crazy. At some point, I didn't see her anymore, but I went on knowing she would follow. Then I heard a sound, footsteps, but they weren't my own. I was startled because they were so close behind me so suddenly. So I turned around but couldn't see anything thanks to the darkness. I got nervous and called for Sunny because it could have been someone with a dog. Sunny didn't come, and I easily panicked. She suddenly stood in front of me out of nowhere and began to growl as violently as she had ever done before. My blood froze because it couldn't be a good thing, and then she started walking straight ahead, growling about 2 or 3 meters, stopped, and at that moment I recognized a figure completely in black. This person was shocked to be in front of Sunny and didn't move, and Sunny started barking like there was no tomorrow. The person slowly walked backwards towards the lighted house entrances, and then I saw Sunny bare teeth in front of a young man wearing a hooded sweater, and probably started to experience the same fears as I did when I noticed him, because as close as he had snuck up on me, he couldn't have had any good in mind. Since it was too dark, however, he could not see Sunny, and she must have surprised him at the right moment. Sunny started to jump, and at that moment, the guy let out a scream, and you could hear something falling in his hand on the ground. He ran, and my dog followed. After I had released myself from my shock and stiffness, I called out to Sunny as loud as I could, until after a short time she was standing in front of me again, wagging her tail. I took her on the leash and went to where the guy had dropped something, and indeed, there was an arm-thick branch on the ground that he certainly didn't have with him to throw sticks. At home, it gradually dawned on me that my Sunny did not have her 5 minutes when she circled me, but that she had long since noticed and kept an eye on this piece of shit to protect me. On the one hand, that was creepy, but also a relief. I was and still am so grateful for this great dog. 3. Workaway is an organization that enables people to volunteer abroad to help others in need in exchange for food and shelter. More often than not, people on Workaway decide to help others abroad to travel to exotic places. And people that hire Workaway volunteers are often families, couples, or elderly people that are too busy for basic chores, and therefore decide to shelter Workaway volunteers to take care of their basic chores. This means that complete strangers, aka the Workaway volunteer and the host or hosts, will be living together for an extended period of time. This is where things can go south. For context, I'm 18 and this happened to me just a couple of months ago. It was my first time doing Workaway, and after the 2 days trying it out, I'm 100% sure I don't want to do it ever again. It was one of the most traumatizing events of my life that I'll remember till the day I die. Also, I'm female, and for context's sake, I've always received compliments on my body since I hit puberty, so I'd say I'm definitely on the attractive side. Not to say it's always been rainbows and sunshine for me on an emotional level. One day, while browsing on Workaway, I received a direct message for an offer of an elderly couple that needed help with gardening chores. The account that messaged me had its first name set as Enzo, so I assumed it was the husband that was hiring the Workaway volunteers. Upon inspecting his profile picture, though, I realized that it was a selfie of him with a much younger woman, maybe in her early 20s. She wasn't even smiling and didn't look like she was even acknowledging that she was in the guy's selfie. I didn't think too much of it, and read their description. Couple looking for some gardening help, very beautiful view of the ocean, looking for young and strong Workaways for help. Don't forget that swimsuit. Winky face. The winky face made it a little creepy. But I probably thought the guy was old and just trying to be funny. They had pictures of the house. It seemed like a charming one with a pool and a nice view of the beach. It looked like paradise, and it had a pretty good rating, so I accepted. All of it was in the south of Italy and looked to be overall a really nice place to stay. All in all, I was pretty excited. Fast forward and I arrive at the place. It's kind of like in the pictures, except that the garden totally run down, as if someone had destroyed it. I get introduced to Enzo first. He's poorly dressed, and I immediately notice he's a little socially awkward. But I think that's just because he can barely express himself in English. I ask him where his wife is, to which he responds that she died about a week ago because of cancer. On the spot, I'm immediately heartbroken and give him my condolences, though I'm a little skeptical because you don't just die of cancer in your 20s. Maybe they broke up and he just didn't want to admit it. He was definitely lying about something. As I'm saying sorry for his loss, he looks down as if he were crying, so I awkwardly, not really out of sympathy, decide to give him a hug. While we're hugging, though, I notice his hands are a little low down my back, barely touching my butt. I was wearing a sundress, so I really felt it. But I didn't think too much of it, and just brushed it off because he was old and rather short. But this is the first red flag for me. We go inside, and he starts showing me around the house. He keeps telling me that there's a pool in the garden if I want to swim. He tells me this about 3 times, and it's getting on my nerves. He shows me my room, and it's a big room with a view of the backyard, pool, and the beach. He had showed me his room, which had the same view. Once in my room, though, he also mentions that there's mice in the attic above my room that sometimes make noise at night. I tell him, oh really, and he doesn't answer. I awkwardly look out the window, and after a long pause of me looking outside the window and turning back to him to compliment the view, he leaves my room without saying anything. I thought maybe he didn't hear me. Fast forward to the next day, and I'm working on the garden, cutting bushes and watering the plants while he's out on the porch behind me, laying down and taking a nap. Or I thought so. It was pretty hot that day, so I was just wearing a bikini and a baggy old shirt on top. While I'm bending over to water some smaller plants in the back, I can't help but notice his eyes are open, looking right at me. I'm not that sure he's watching me, though, so I decide to go water the plants next to him and pretend I think he's sleeping. I bend over and pretend I'm picking up something from the soil. I'm aware that my breasts are more or less half exposed through the baggy shirt I was wearing. I quickly glance in his direction and see that his old eyes are wide open and locked onto my breasts. A little disgusted, I stand up and walk towards the side of the house where he can't see me. A couple of moments after that, he goes back inside. I start to get a little suspicious about this guy, but I couldn't really blame him. After all, his wife was allegedly dead or broken up, and it wasn't the first time a guy has looked at me like that. I take this as a second red flag, though. On the second day, Enzo has given me permission to take the day off, so I decide to wander off to the beach. It was fun and especially beautiful, but it was a little too sunny, so I decided to go in the backyard near the pool and under the shade of the trees. When I came back, Enzo was walking towards me with swimming goggles in his hand, and suddenly tells me that there's small rocks in the pool that I should pick up, because he's too old to go that deep in the water. That's when I thought it was a little odd. Firstly, who has small rocks not so randomly scattered in their pool floor? And secondly, who owns a pool and doesn't have a perch to get small leaves and insects out of the water? But put on the spot, I decided to do the job. I was also already in my swimsuit, so why should I not do it? I put on the goggles, go inside the water, and pick up the rocks. While I'm doing this, he's standing there just watching me do it. In the water, I faintly hear the iPhone's recording sound. And while getting back up out of the water after picking up the last rock, though, I notice him on his phone for the first time. He's holding it in the water with both hands as if he was zooming in on me. It was just too obvious. I tell him I'm done and ask him if that's his phone. He replies that he's using it to zoom in the water because it's waterproof and he can use it to see the rocks in the water. I told him that was a great idea, though I didn't believe it one bit. This is the third red flag, and right then and there, I make up my mind to leave early because I don't feel safe with this guy. I ask him for a towel since I forgot one, and he quickly jerks away to get one in the house. While I look at the sea in front of me, I waited for a good 5 minutes before he hands me a towel. That's when I suspected he was most likely watching me from the upstairs window before actually getting it. I dry myself off and get to my room to take a nap because I was exhausted. Once in my room, though, I look for possible hidden cameras because I started to doubt Enzo. Fortunately, I found nothing. So I locked my door, took a shower, and went to sleep. I wake up at around 7 and for some reason I can't find Enzo anywhere in the house. It's dinner time, so I just decide to start cooking. I call him out for dinner and he finally shows up. I ask him where he was, to which he responds that he was in his room. Again, this was a complete lie, since I walked past his empty room on several occasions. We had dinner and he kept telling me how good it was. I kept telling him with everything that's left in me that I was flattered, to which he responds back with an old creepy smile. That night I had some trouble falling asleep. I had obviously locked my door and thus felt safe, but it was an unusually hot summer night. Before coming here, I had this habit of sleeping naked that I stopped doing once I came here for obvious reasons. I opened the windows to get some fresh air, but still didn't help. So I succumbed to old habits and decided to take off my pajamas to sleep naked. I instantly fell asleep after that. I woke at around 3 a.m. to the same noise coming from the ceiling. It was like faint old wood cracking. I open my eyes and look at the ceiling above me. That's when in the dark, between the planks, I faintly see a set of eyes looking at me. I lock eye contact with Enzo, who is in the fucking attic, and get in full panic mode when I'm paralyzed with fear, so I don't move. I pretend I'm looking at the left side of the ceiling and then close my eyes. My breasts are completely exposed to this creep, so I decide to turn to my side and move up the blanket to cover up. For the rest of the night, I'm too scared to open my eyes or move, so I just stay there paralyzed in fear until some sunlight reaches me. Morning came and I was more than ready to just get out of this hell house. When it was about 6 in the morning, I packed my stuff and left the house running. I waited at the train station to get to the nearest airport. Thank God I came out unharmed. The guy was a twisted and seriously sick fucking pervert. So to Enzo, you lying old rapist creep, let's never meet again. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 3 True Scary Stories, episode 521. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. As I believe I mentioned in yesterday's video, the scary stories are a bit hard to get right now, so there very likely won't be one on Monday, but I will try and do one for Wednesday. If there is one on Monday, then there'll probably be something else on Wednesday. We'll see what I can rustle up. There will be a video, though. I won't leave you without a video. I'm going to keep the rest of the outro short because I'm feeling a bit today, over the past couple of days. Just one of those things that'll probably settle down. It usually does. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.